Welcome to the Old Mac Gang podcast, or OMG, a podcast with a panel of longtime Mac Apple users who want to discuss the most relevant apps and services to age-seasoned users. I'm Marty Gensius, an Apple enthusiast and podcaster. I'm a 67-year-old age-seasoned user who has collected a great group of friends to talk about Apple and its products and the seasoned citizens. Let's go to the group. And
hey, good evening. I'm Chris. I'm 77. I am a member of the Tucson Mac user group right now, and Bob is our faithful president. And I have been around the Mac since 1984. Spent about 9 years with the Apple user groups in Texas, and then worked for Apple for almost another 9 years. And after that, worked at a university in the San Francisco Bay Area. So nowadays, I am using an M1 Mac Mini, an iPad 16 Pro Max, Apple Watch Series 6, 9th generation iPad, and like Peter says, lots of Apple services. So happy to be here.
And I'm Peter. I'm 72 years old. I'm from Bay Village, Ohio, on the southern shore of Lake Erie. I'm a member of the Northeast Ohio Apple Club. I started with computers in high school, a remote GE mainframe timeshare accessed with a teletype terminal. I found computers intriguing, and I've been using them ever since for fun and profit. All things Apple began for me in 2006, and I'm still on board and can't wait for everything that's next.
I'm Gary. I live in Cleveland. I met Marty and Peter at the Northeast Apple Group also. And then when Marty found Chris and Bob, I joined the Tucson group. I'm 87 years old. I've been using Apple products since 2004. My primary tools are the M2 Mac Mini, iPhone 14 Pro Max, and Apple Watch Ultra 1.
And I'm Bob Wood, and I am in Tucson as well. I'm an officer of the Tucson Macintosh User Group. I'm 70-something years old. I don't remember the exact number. I've been using Macintosh computers since System 6.8 and have tried to keep relatively current since then. Thank you.
so, a couple of things. One thing that just happened today, and I thought it was just worth mentioning. I'm not sure what it means, but Alexa has now been supercharged. I haven't had a chance to try it yet, and I'm going to be careful about saying that name. But yeah, she's talking in the background now. I'm just interested to see that she's ramping up stuff, and we'll have to look at it further. And I think many of our listeners, many people within our age group, have these voice-assisted types of instruments around the house, and so it'll be interesting to see how it rolls out. Anybody hear anything particular about it that was of interest? It's on the
Got some new
splash
AI
page.
capabilities, right? Yeah.
Pardon? Yeah.
New AI capabilities.
Yeah, and it's on the splash page. They're calling it the A-Lady Plus, I guess, is what I saw on the splash page. If you go to your Amazon account, that will come up as a window for it. So again, it's another voice activated device that probably a lot of people have in their house. That supposedly this ramps up. I heard something like you could send it documents. I'm not sure I want to send documents to Amazon. And it will do analysis on documents, but we'll see where it goes with this. Just a bit of news that came out today. I try to look for things that have come out that are maybe relevant or fit within the old Mac gang sort of group that we're working with. And that was something that I came out and I thought, a lot of people have these Amazon devices around their house. So, but tonight we're going to talk about health wearables and what that means and what that is entitled. So, just a general question: do you have any health wearables? And if so, what kind? Gary, to you.
My only health wearable is my Apple Watch, and I only really use it all the time. I don't use it exactly for health. I use it to find my iPhone most of the time, but I'm glad I have it. I do check my blood oxygen, and I don't use it. I think it checks in my EKG, but I'm really not using it for more than what I just said, Marty.
Okay. Chris?
Well, I was just thinking as Gary was talking there, my number one wearable is my hearing aids. I'm on the third generation of these guys. I think I started in 2012, and I definitely need them. And I also have the Apple Watch Series 6. I haven't upgraded, as Bob pointed out in a previous, I think, show, that because the blood oxygen thing isn't available on the newer watches, a lot of us aren't upgrading because that's a fairly important thing to seniors. And I did get some recent info on that, which we could talk about later if we have time. I also have the iPod Pro Generation 1, and of course my phone, 16 Pro Max. So, but I do a lot with my watch, and I don't know, at some point, do we want to drill deeper later, Marty, and
Yeah,
just
maybe
do a first round here? Okay.
in another show, but particularly with health wearables and the aspects of health. Do you do that with your Series 6?
Oh, absolutely. I can do pretty much everything, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, I do sleep tracking. I do Apple Maps, the blinker, which is enormously valuable. If you've ever driven in California where driveways can be very close to, well, they can in Arizona too, I suppose. And, just knowing, which driveway to turn in, that sort of thing. Fall detect for me is an absolute no-brainer with seniors. I can't believe everybody doesn't have one. And
Mhm.
Find My and the blood oxygen stuff, and to me is just as important as the heart stuff. And of course there's the timer app. I use that constantly. And most of the people I see in healthcare, particularly technical people, like people that take blood and nurses and all of that sort of stuff, if they have an Apple Watch, they say their number one app is the timer. They use it constantly.
Okay. Bob?
I have an Apple Watch, again, Series 6, and I'm hoping that Apple resolves their issues with the blood oxygen sensor because my battery ain't so good anymore. That's a personal problem. I also use the AirPods Pro and a CPAP machine. And I consider CPAP a rare wearable because I wear it 8 or 9 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a CPAP and got it
I
when
think
I
we all
first
do.
started. Yeah, I got it when I first started teaching because I kept feeling like I was falling asleep in class. And so I thought, I need to go see a doc. Well, I went to see a doctor for another reason. And I fell asleep in the waiting room. I mean, he put me in a room and I sat there for 20 minutes and I fell asleep. And apparently my snoring could be heard out in the waiting room. And he came in and he said, "You're getting a sleep test, buddy." And, went and had the sleep test and just, it was like butter and bread to me when I finally got that CPAP and it didn't take much adjustment, but it completely changed the way in which I sleep. and really can't live without it. So, Peter.
Yeah, Apple Watch is my primary wearable, and it's essential to me. I mean, as an ex-statistics teacher, I like to lead a quantified life. So the rings are a good nudge for my good behavior. Uh, through the heart statistics, I was able to detect early that I have atrial fibrillation, and I'm planning to have an early intervention, in fact, tomorrow, to hopefully put an end to that. But it wasn't the detection of AFib, which was pretty infrequent in my case, but the fact that when I would do certain exercise, my heart rate would not come back to normal fast enough. And one of the things it measures is when you end a workout, what the decline in your heart rate after 1 minute, after 2 minutes, and so on. So I'm very grateful to that. And when I went in to seek treatment, all the statistics I had, and I had downloaded them and had them charted and everything from my physicians, were super helpful. So I view the watch as sort of the gateway to all kinds of different things, because when I use my CPAP, the CPAP talks with my phone. The phone pulls the sleep data off my watch. When I'm looking at things, they're all integrated. Of course, I like the fall stuff, uh, but I like the way the health app makes data connections, consolidates data. And in the last couple weeks, I signed up for the Apple Health Study, and I think just like the rings are a nice guide for me to do good things, answering some of the questionnaires that they offer you to, just to answer if you want to contribute, are very helpful in alerting me to things that could be helpful. And the last thing I would mention is my iPods Pro, because I think, as I mentioned on a previous show, I use them as hearing protection in transparency mode at concerts to turn the sound down.
Well, I guess it's my turn. I buy a lot of these devices, and I currently have a Apple Watch Series 10. I have I think it's a first generation Ultra, or it might be a second generation Ultra. I was going to sell that back and then realized it was the only one that still did the oxygen sensing in it, so I held on to that. Although I wear the watch, it collects data on me. I have it hooked up with the health app. I'm one of those people that never looks at data. I know there are folks who love to count their steps. To me, it's just not the cocaine. It's just not the cocaine that other people have about. I got to get my 10,000 in. I got to get from here to the kitchen. And so it doesn't act as the happy motivator like Tim Cook, tells stories about. But I wear my watch, it collects data, it's part of the health app. But the thing that I've been using, and I just got it because, I don't know, I saw a commercial for it and I said, this is pretty cool. I usually never, and now I don't, ever sleep with my watch, which is another thing. I didn't know what to do with sleep data. And so, yeah, I know I woke up, I didn't get enough sleep. But this device oh, this device, the Oura Ring, is something that I got, and it really is pretty cool. What you're seeing over here on one side of the screen is it's a ring and it goes on and it has all sorts of things that will collect data. And then for those who are viewing us on YouTube, I have shared my phone app on the screen. And this is the kind of data that you can get. You can get readiness. So you get information about the contributors like resting heart rate, HRV balance, body temperature, recovery index. All of these things give data around that. with sleep, you get information about your sleep and your sleep trending. And you get each one of these has its own page within the app. Activity levels in terms of today was a lot of sit here at home and work, and then go to the office and work. And also heart rate information. So I have been wearing that, and I wear this to sleep. That's what is great for it for me. I won't wear the watch, but this thing fits on my finger really nice. I am married. I don't put it on the wedding band side. I put it on the other finger. The reason I don't have my wedding band on is I got too fat long ago to ever have it fit on my finger, so I took it off. And but I just bought this Oura ring so I could size it for this finger, and I wear it, and it gives me throughout the day I'm checking it to see what's going on, and I'm doing that more than I ever did with my watch or did with a health app. So it also does some interesting thing by combining metrics and giving you some ideas about what you can do. Like if your readiness is low, then maybe take a nap if you can take a nap. And then like yesterday, I was sitting in a meeting and I had walked across campus, and I was didn't want to be late for the meeting because it was with the provost, and we were going to do some work and in terms of tenure and promotion stuff. So I was anxious about having all of that together and got in and sat down, and I started getting notifications on my phone that the Oura Ring had determined that my heart rate had gone up and it seemed to be sustained at a higher range for a period of time. And so during the meeting, I just kind of took it easy, took some breaths, and those notifications stopped. I've had that happen with my watch before for no reason whatsoever. I'm sitting at the vet and I'm getting notifications that my heart rate has been accelerated. I went back to immediately left the vet, went to the doctor. They did a strip on me. Everything was okay. So it's just this ring has got a lot of combinations of metrics that work for me, and it rarely goes off my finger except when I'm showering. I could wear this in the shower. It's water resistant and watertight, but it's an interesting device that I've just gotten, and it's the one device that I seem to be using more in terms of health stuff. So I guess that begs, I told you how I use mine. I guess it goes back to the group in terms of how do you use your devices? And I think we're going to Peter again.
Well, I mean, I described that I use it for all kinds of stuff, but it's to continuously monitor what how my body's performing. And I think I described everything in my last answer, so I really don't have anything more to add to that.
Okay. Bob, do you have some things to add?
I think so. Like what has been said before, I use the exercise rings uh, to have them nag me into better health. In the last few years, I've lost um, 60 to 80 pounds, depending on where along the timeline you count these things. I use the O2 monitor because I have that issue, and sleep tracking, and I use mindfulness and try to do at least 8 breathes a day. Fall detection is a good thing. I did fall once, and it offered to call the ambulance. I said no. What happened? I was looking at my phone and I missed the curb, and bam, right in my face. I also use Find My. My wife and I share our locations all the time, so we can see where each other is, and if we have issues, or we can find each other. Medication reminders. I have AirPods Pro, uh, using them for hearing protection, as was said before, and hearing enhancement, although I'm still working on that. I have a CPAP machine, gives me more and better sleep. It has made a big difference in my health. I have a HomePod and an Amazon Echo. I guess technically they're not wearables, but I think they dovetail into this because they will turn lights on and off with voice commands, and it helps do things like get into the dark bedroom or get out of the dark bedroom. I get announcements on my watch and my phone when the camera at our front door sees the Amazon driver drop something off. So I'm using my wearable devices all the time.
Chris, do you have anything to add?
Well, maybe this would be a good chance to just provide a quick update on the Apple Massimo. Is that how it's pronounced? That's
Mm-hmm.
the company that has the patent. Uh, Recently, I'll just go to the
Can you
final
do a little
paragraph.
background on it for folks who
Oh,
might not be
okay.
familiar?
So the argument from Massimo was, and I'm not an attorney, don't pretend to be, but that the Apple oxygen blood sensor or blood oxygen sensor was impinging on a patent of theirs. And so basically what happened was the first trial apparently ended in a mistrial, the first jury trial, and Massimo's continued efforts to block Apple from using the technology. So they basically had to turn it off as of, I don't know if I have the date here, but it's been off for a couple of years. And it sort of went back and forth. And more recently, the CEO of Massimo resigned, which could open the door, according to ChatGPT, to a potential settlement between the two companies. Now, we'll see when as and if that happens. But there may be an opportunity to negotiate something because it's a pretty darn important feature, for me. I mean, there's no point in updating my watch without it. The other thing, of course, I'd like to see is constant blood pressure because I'm one of those skeptics that doesn't think static blood pressure means very much. But and so I'm not a metric guy. I never look at stuff either. Although I do track sleep, and having gone through a couple of joint replacements where I started out after surgery sleeping for 45 minutes at a time, and gradually seeing that work up to about 3 or 4 hours at a time over about 6 months to a year, sleep tracking got a lot more important for me, and
Mm-hmm.
getting much better quality sleep now. And that's an important. I do use a CPAP, and so it's as we all know, it's a combination of getting the CPAP time and getting enough sleep, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
So I used to get apnea headaches. That was my problem. I didn't fall asleep during the day, but
yeah.
I would get these headaches that feel like somebody just tore my scalp off, and it's nasty. Those are nasty headaches, and they last all day.
Yeah.
Um,
The
but
Massimo,
yeah, so that's sort of that's the latest on Massimo, and let's keep our fingers crossed and hope they can work something out. And there are lots of other things people are looking forward to. Folks who have to do the diabetic testing would love to see something for the glucose testing and stuff in a watch or something. And there are some new things I understand that are not actually breaking the skin, I don't think. But not being diabetic, I don't really follow those. Um, what are some of the other ones that people have been asking for? Um, constant blood pressure was one of them. Um, I don't
I
know.
would, I
Anybody? I
would,
can't. I can't think.
yeah. I mean, personally, I would like to see blood sugar monitoring. And if there's some way to do it through the watch, great. If the even if the watch is Bluetooth to the devices that you currently have, I use a Libre 2, and that Bluetooths to my phone, and I can get the data that way. But I can imagine the possibility of it Bluetoothing to a watch just as easily to be able to get the data from a constant sort of level. And some folks are on systems where you have to kind of touch your phone to the device in order to get it to register the blood sugar. So I think there are some options there. I've heard about sort of the optical blood sugar registry, like we do the optical now with the oxygen sensor, or did. And the idea of being able to do it with blood sugar is, I think, still in the future. I'm very interested in it being diabetic and wanting to kind of check that information, and basically not just for me to check the information, but for me to have a phone full of data I can give my doctor when I see him and he's looking at the medications he has me on and what's going on with my A1C and things like that. Are there any other wishes for folks in the group of what they would like to see happen for health wearables?
Well, the ones you mentioned are the primary ones, blood sugar and blood pressure. I think everybody wants those. But I also think temperature,
Yeah.
and I know that people get really hung up on the precision of the measurements. But I think when you're tracking something continuously, seeing trends, seeing something change, even if you might not be right on the money compared to a more precise test, to notice that when I eat this certain food, this blood sugar that's not totally accurate spikes. It might be a signal to me, maybe I need to stay away from that. The other thing that I think is very interesting is that hearing people talk here, wearables, when I first heard the topic, I thought watch, eyeglasses, earbuds, or something. But I think phone is a wearable. And the fact that, Marty, that you've got blood sugar linked to your phone and your phone is always with you,
Mhm.
that phone is a wearable. And in fact, the procedure I'm having tomorrow, I'm in a clinical study, and they're going to be doing extra monitoring on me afterwards, and they're going to slap some devices on me, and they're going to give me a phone so that their phone that I will carry with me will send everything to them all the time. So they very much consider a phone to be a wearable.
I am looking at this Oura Ring, and it does do body temperature, which is pretty cool. I guess. I mean, it's cool that it's there and the data's there. But I'm looking at the data right now, and I was plus 2.2 Fahrenheit on the average today. So I'm running a little warm, as things are. Any other comments in terms of wearables and health issues? Chris?
Well, Marty, two quick things. One, for the ladies, there's the whole cycle tracking thing in health.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things it does is ovulation tracking, which
Mhm.
requires body temperature, which I think the current watches do body temperature, don't they?
Yes,
Am I
Oh,
wrong about
okay.
that? I thought they did.
they
And
do.
then the other point is just sort of a more of a final wrap up point that I would love it if more doctors were willing to look and consider what the iPhone is generating. Like about half my doctors, say, "Oh no, 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 we've got all our own stuff. We're on," and that includes my cardiologist, by the way, which is makes me a little nervous. But at one point, I forget what the situation was. I had a new PCP, and I said to her tech, I use the health app all the time. She said, "Oh, great, let me have it." And she sat there for about 15 minutes transcribing stuff off of it. And I told her I could print it out, but you know how this stuff goes here in Tucson. You you can't. Let me see. Let me tell this by way of a story. When I came from Kaiser in California, I had this huge thumb drive with about 500, about half a gig of data on it from 20 years in California. And after 6 months at Tucson Medical Center, they handed it back to me because I brought in some printouts. And they said, "Oh, can we scan those?" I said, "Sure, you can have them. That's why I made them, right?" And then they said, oh, well, we can give you this back because they won't allow us to plug these in.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
it's that's the whole, PC security thing has been put a real halt to data sharing and stuff. And it's
Yeah,
disappointing.
my doctor is interested in my health app. He's particularly interested in what data has been collected on my Libre 2. But, so we'll go through and he'll look through that. And then, particularly with the health app, he's also interested in looking and seeing what some of the metrics are. Now with this Oura Ring, it'll be interesting to see what his interest is. It's nice to have a doctor that does buy into that stuff for whatever reason. Peter?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if you all have hunted for a doctor that meshes with you. I have several times during my life. And one of the things that's now part of what I would think about is how receptive are they to receiving information from you, not just, your opinions on, you know, what you think would work for you and so forth. Uh, and I think more and more physicians are becoming more convinced that people who are willing to track data for them is helpful to them being able to do good medicine. Because,
Yeah.
to say, I'm going to base it on a blood pressure when you walk in for that one moment, as opposed to I take my blood pressure twice a day, I chart it, here's the data, here's a graph, here's what's happening. I mean, I think you want a doctor who's going to say, yeah, that's a better idea.
I, Gary?
Down the road, the other one's here too. But before that, I was thinking about what Chris said. Hopefully, you would think that all the data that's on my health is in the clinic on their computers. That if I move to Tucson, that there'd be some way that data could be transferred. But on the other side, eventually, if these health apps become part of the watch, if we talk about the watch, then maybe there'll be a way that the clinic will have hospitals would have a receptor that you could automatically transfer what you said, your blood pressure during the day, stuff on the sleeping, that would go into your chart. Because even when the clinic started to put all the medical records online, that was a big task. So if hospitals today, progressive ones, want to operate that way, that may be down the road.
Yeah. I took my wife to her fourth appointment with her orthopedic surgeon for her broken wrist. And this is the fourth time that they've given me a clipboard with a piece of paper with the same questions on it that I have to fill out over and over again. And today I said, you know, I'm just going to start making stuff up because it doesn't seem to matter that I fill this out every time and it doesn't change anything. So, what does it matter if I put truth in or if I just put in some fanciful, funny stuff? I didn't, but just that kind of stuff. Bob?
I think what you ought to do, Marty, is they hand you the clipboard before you fill it out. Take a picture of it, fill it out, give it to them. Next time you take that picture, you fill it in using preview. Next
Right.
time you walk in, here you go.
Yeah, I know you're going to ask for it, so you might as well have it. The one thing, and to kind of wrap this up, Bob, you mentioned about medication management, and I think that's a big topic for people in our age range. I have my little plastic container with all of my daily drugs in it that sit in front of my computer because that's where I will see it. If I put it in the bathroom, but I know I'm guaranteed that's going to be in my face here. There are also apps for medication management. I think you can do it with reminders. I'm sure Bob has come up with some good strategies for doing that. So maybe another show will be just about medication management and how do we keep track of what we have to take and what ways can seniors do it. My wife is, has some vision issues, which is why I'm filling out forms for her at the doctor's office. But also, even the little pill tray holder that she has, the letters are too small for her. So we need to find one that's bigger so she can figure out this is the day that this is in this slot for what it has to happen. So there's a lot of things in terms of consideration. Also, the idea of doing medication reminders, because in some cases folks can't remember if they took it or not. And having a medication reminder or an app to do that, once it happens and triggers it, they can take it. I have something I have to take in the morning and something I have to take in the evening. So I have to remember to put one pill up on top of my Mac Mini. So that is my evening dose of metformin, and I have one that I take in the morning. So, yeah, Chris.
The Apple Health app will do that right now. In fact, if there's one thing I could leave everybody with tonight and all our viewers, if you haven't looked at the Apple Health app, pour yourself a nice big cup of coffee, tea, Sanka, or whatever you like, and take a look at that Apple Health app, because there's a wealth of stuff in there. And you can track your meds and the whole thing.
Yeah, let's not talk too much. We need to do another show on it.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll be the next one that we do. If you do the show now, then we got to come up with a different idea. So thank you all. If there's any final words around health wearables, I just know that people feel about them differently, and it's more attitudinal about how they manage information or how they pay attention to it. I'm probably the worst to talk about it. But this Oura Ring is kind of a nice new shiny object, literally a shiny object that I can gather some data with.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap it up for this episode. Our next live episode will be March the next Wednesday. What is that? I didn't put it in the blank.
Calendar.
March the 5th. So we will be back March the 5th, Eastern Time, 9 p.m. You can catch us on YouTube at youtube.com/@oldmacgang for the live feed. You can also catch the podcast after that if you just want the audio feed, and you can catch that on most of your podcast servers. I have a bunch of sites we didn't talk about tonight. They're informational sites about seniors and wearables. It'll be part of the notes in both the video and also in the podcast if you want to look at those, with also a link to the product that I was talking about, the Oura Ring. So you can always pick up the podcast or the video at a later time. Please share this with your friends and Mac user groups, which that's a lot of our age group there in Mac user groups. Our music bed is by Philip Gross, Marrakesh, courtesy of Free Music Archive. More information about this podcast and others can be found at thepodtalk.net at that website. Thanks to the group, Gary, Chris, Peter, and Bob, and thank you for being part of the Old Mac Gang. We'll see you next time.